Welcome back to the High Vibe Life podcast with me, your host, Moira Casava. I am so stoked for this episode today. We've got Andrew Godwin in the virtual studio, I should say. Andrew, welcome to the show.
Thanks so much, Moira. Happy to be here.
Yeah, I am so excited to talk to you and really bring your knowledge to my audience, which is a lot of midlife moms that have a lot of teenage boys. And so the way that you and I connected, there was a post, something you put up on Instagram, probably almost a year ago, and it caught my attention so much that I saved it and I kept going back to it thinking like, I gotta track this guy down, and I don't know if I can hire him, but like he needs to talk to my son. And so I tracked you down and you ended up talking to my son. That's kind of what happened.
That's right. Yeah. I'm curious what the video was. Do you remember? Or is it long gone?
Gosh.
Probably long gone.
I mean, well, it's your typical video, right? Of like how these teenage boys like communicate horribly with the and the ums and the bruh and the, there's just this like animalistic, conversation and how can we improve that? And how can we come alongside them to really, really help them thrive in their goals? And so tell me first off, before we dig in, would you just describe, like, who would you say you are? What would you say you do in the world?
Yeah, I'm a communication skills coach for young men. So I work with young guys anywhere from 13 all the way up to guys who are early on in their career. I've worked with people who are in their late 20s, early 30s, and even some executives who are into their 50s at this point. But it's more toward young men. Yeah.
Yeah, that's so awesome. So tell me this before we dig in, just so we can kind of almost skip to the end just for a couple highlights. What does that outcome look like for you working with these young men? Like, where do they start and where do they get to working with you?
Yeah, such a good question because it differs for everybody. So the path for a lot of people varies. I mean, there are a lot of young men right now in high school who are sitting at home on the weekends. They're playing video games. They don't have real friends at school. So making one or two friends is a great outcome for them.
Yeah.
Alternatively, I have folks who, are in the corporate world struggling with their relationship with their manager. And so we need to iron that out. How can they demonstrate the work that they're doing really well, have those difficult conversations, move forward in their career and move up, ideally, if they want to, or get a new job. So it spans across so many different things. Obviously, I have a lot of young guys interested in meeting girls and dating and all that stuff as well. So that's a common thread. I think parents come for different reasons, where I think a lot of parents are seeing their sons in situations with teachers, with their own friends, one-word answers, shut off, neutral face, call it RBF, but really negative-looking face, and they're not showing who they truly are, but they're the same, or they do really well at home. And so they're these amazing, smart, kind kids, and then when they get out in the world, they struggle that way. So pulling that out of them, who they truly are, is a big part of my work.
Wow. Such important work. I mean, it's game-changing work, life-changing work. And so let's start with, I love that you just kind of, went all the way across the spectrum, because I obviously think of my child and that specific situation, but you're right. It's like there's others out there that like don't know how to talk to girls, really the young professionals that don't know how to handle upper management and how to deal with that. Can we zero in for a minute on kind of what I feel like most parents, especially moms, frustration is with why? Like, why is this that they can be so gregarious, so outgoing, so chit-chatty with their friends? And then when it comes to adults, when it comes to, like you said, teachers or coaches, they just shut down. Is that fear? Is like, what's going on there? Can you unpack that a little bit?
Yeah, it's a number of things. So the first one you touched on, it is fear. So there are a number of psychological phenomena that come into play. There's the spotlight effect, where we overestimate how much other people are looking at the negative side of us. So we're saying, I stumbled over my words, I didn't show up properly. They're watching that. In reality, we're all in our own heads, making sure that we come off the right way. And nobody's digging into this too heavily, but we worry. And avoiding is a much better way and safer way to go about it for young men than trying to learn the skill. So that's the first one. It's fear. A lot of young men have social anxiety. They underestimate how much other people actually like them. And then there's the other side of the coin. So we have that piece, the fear, and then it's just not knowing the tools and skills to actually have that conversation. I think COVID and social media had a huge impact on young men right now. If you're 13, 14, 15, shut inside for 2 years, having virtual conversations with people, it's really hard to put yourself out in the real world after that. And so I have a lot of young guys come to me and say, I don't know how to start a conversation. I don't know how to continue it. I want to get to know people, but I'm really struggling there. So it's both of those. It's the fear and then just the skill set itself.
Wow. Yeah, gosh, it says so much. And as you're sharing all that, I also feel like there's this shift in how we teach it too, right? Like I think even when it comes to old school, old school coaching, there used to be a lot more of this, like teaching the pleasantries, teaching communication skills. And as you're talking, Andrew, I'm thinking like, gosh, I don't think that's being taught as much in school or sports, but maybe it's not even being taught as much at home because we're all so busy or our attention is diverted, right? Because of social media, because of smartphones, because of all those things.
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah.
It's true. But I'll have a lot of parents say like, I'm saying a lot of similar things that you are on social media, but it's not good. It's not getting through because a lot of parents say, be yourself. Why don't you just go talk to them and hang out? And like oftentimes they're afraid. So they don't want to do that. And they don't know what being their true self actually, that's really hard to pinpoint. Be your true self. Even for me, for you, it's really difficult to nail down what that actually looks like because you feel like you're acting. But I think a lot of parents are noticing this problem and really trying whatever they can at this point. So I have a lot of shares on my videos and it's all moms to their kids. I don't know if the kids watch the videos, but they're getting it in their DMs constantly.
Yes.
So
that's awesome. I'm guilty there. I did the exact same.
It's everywhere.
Yes. Okay. So this is what begs the question, right? Just what we're talking about.
Yeah.
Before we dig into like how, another why question. Why? I mean, I feel like it's probably common sense, but like, why is it as parents, we try so hard and man, our kids just put up a brick wall, just shut down, right? They don't want to take the advice. They don't want to hear it from us. No. Why is it that they're more open to hearing it from somebody like you or even social media than they are their own parents?
Yeah, I think there's absolutely an element of it's normally mom. Sorry, moms to generalize, but mom, you've been separated from high school for some time. You don't understand what's going on. Like things were different back in the day. You had your job at the ice cream shop or whatever it was. And then now
I'm not that old.
No, of course not you, Moira, everybody else. So it's a little bit different. I think they even might see movies from prior generations and say it's just not the same now. And I think that's very evident. And then there has to be an element of social media where if you see people make a mistake online, you're going viral for all the wrong reasons. So I think there's an ultra magnifying effect of having a fear of messing up socially, where you're going to end up on camera and it's going to span across millions of people versus I just messed up in the moment, 30, 40, 50 years ago, even 10 years ago. And it wasn't as big of a deal, but there's certainly some impact of that virality that's in the back of our minds.
Wow. That's so insightful because that honestly never even crossed my mind. You're absolutely right though. That's the world they live in, especially when you're talking about if they're talking to girls, if they're just in their kind of friend social situation and they're getting nervous and a lack of confidence around that, everything. I mean, I do tell my kids, I'm like, because there was tons of kids over here for Super Bowl Sunday. And it was a wake up call even for me that I was like, wow, every single moment is being recorded from multiple angles.
Yeah.
I mean, it's scary because that's all they do. They're snapping, they're recording, they're snapping, they're recording, they're snapping, they're recording. Yeah. So, wow, that's big. And so that's kind of more in the personal world, right? Why they might get nervous, lack of confidence in their personal life. Yeah. When it comes to really what I hired you for was to help Finn talk to recruiters and talk to these coaches that I know just want to see and feel his love for the sport or his love for the school or his dream and his vision and his heart for his passion for baseball. Yeah. And I see him just completely freeze up and clam up and go like completely silent.
Yeah.
And when it comes to that, what are some of those key strategies? What are the things that you coach them through to help them really shift that? Because you've been able to do that with Finn and it's been such a huge help. So can you talk a little bit on that?
Yeah, I'm glad to hear that. So I'll just taking a quick step back here. So there's something called the mismatch problem. I think this is one of the biggest things I'm seeing right now. So young guys, I think they have great intention. They want to be liked. They want to like other people. But the intention is not matching up with the signals that they're putting out there. So
Mm.
they're very self-focused, which we all are. I mean, like when you're a baby and a young person, you're behind your parents and you don't have to do anything for yourself. You don't have to worry about the world around you. So what I teach is getting others focused. And so
Mm.
we talk about, I mean, everybody knows, or most people know, that first impression, people look at warmth and competence. So we have to look at what are the signals we're sending to other people. And so I break that down. I try to say, okay, let's put yourself in their shoes. What do you actually have to do with your face, with your voice, with your words to demonstrate that you're a friendly guy and that you're sure of yourself? Because if we're not sure of ourselves, the other person's going to say, like, there's something a little bit off here. It's a little bit
Mhm.
unpredictable. If you're not friendly, same thing. It's like, I don't want to be around a not
Yeah.
friendly person. So we have to think about that. We have to get out of our heads and put the focus on them.
Mhm.
One of the simplest things I'm teaching right now, show people you're glad to see them. That's it.
Yeah.
And so I think that little mantra helps a lot of young guys say, oh, it's not about what I'm wearing and showing up or how I'm showing up, but what impact can I make on them? And so that's the big mindset shift that I think
Huge.
comes with maturity. I think guys develop a little bit later, so it takes time, but to build that foundation now, I think is really important.
Yeah. I mean, that's massive. Like, I didn't learn that except by default, probably in my late 20s, early 30s. Like, two things I can remember. I can remember going into a very intimidating party
Yeah.
and I was so nervous. Like, I was so nervous. I can remember how I felt on the drive there. And I can remember telling myself, like, and again, it's something I probably heard somewhere along the way. I was like, just ask them questions. Just ask them questions, you know? And when you do that, everything changes, right? When you're more interested in them, be interested versus interesting, even though we do want to be interesting, it shifts that focus, like you're saying. And then the reality I had also later in life was, you know, when you walk into someone's home, it's like some people walk into your home with, like, you know, quietly with their shoulders slouched over, and they just kind of walk in like a black cloud a little bit, and they're unaware of that energy. But all of us have the choice to walk into someone's home like, hey,
Yeah.
you know, with excitement, with, you know, asking people how they are. And it is such a stark contrast. And most people just aren't aware of it, but most of us all want to be that bright light when we walk into the room. And so that's so much of what you're doing with these kids. I mean, why is this not a class in high school, right? It's like,
We'll get there eventually.
this is one day. This is so much more important than 90% of what they're learning.
Yeah.
So let's go into what it looks like. You know, every child is so different. We've kind of said that. So very different situations, every single person that you work with. But typical teenage boy, you know, you get him on a call. Where do you start? The one thing I want to point out, and with in our first meeting, you and I can remember thinking to myself, I was like, wait a second, this is on Zoom? I was like, oh, this is amazing, because you got to see exactly what the reason I wanted you to work with him, right? You got to see, as we say, the resting bitch face. You got to see the posture. You got to see. And so that's such a huge advantage of the work that you do, being on face-to-face live Zoom calls with these kids and these young men, that you get to see it in real time, right?
Exactly. Yeah. I think there's one challenge. Well, there are a number of challenges. It's really hard to teach body language over Zoom.
Yeah.
The second thing is Zoom muffles a lot of things, vocal tonality, even visual cues. So that can be challenging. But I think you're exactly right. It forces my clients to almost bring more personality.
Yeah.
And what you just talked about, I just want to tick back to one point that you made about coming to the party and having that energy. I get so many people in my comments say, like, I'm an introvert. How do I do this? That's just who I am. And you can still bring that warmth and friendliness as an introvert. And I think people get caught up in introvert, shy, doesn't want to talk to people. It's really where you get your energy. Do you get your energy from people? Right. Extroverts can spend all day with people. I'm introverted. A lot of people don't know that about me. I took us on a detour there, but yeah.
No, I love that detour, because I'm the same way. Everyone, even in like my work as a coach and things, people often will look at me and they're like, well, I don't have your personality. And I'm like, you mean my extremely introverted, never want to leave the house personality? Because, you know, I can turn it on when I need to turn it on, but that is not my MO at all. All.
I would not have expected that either.
Yeah. So as parents, because yes, they're all going to want to hire you, right? Like the easiest thing I've always found is they're just not going to hear it from me. It's like, let me bring in the person and then I can just kind of be the backup to that message. And maybe if they're hearing it from somebody else, they'll be a little bit more open to what I have to say. But what can we do as parents to help change this or shift it? Like, what do we need to shift ourselves? Because what I always say is the problem doesn't lie with him. The problem lies within me. Like that's the only thing I have control over and that's the only thing I can shift. So what can we shift?
Yeah. So I think you could probably resonate with this. So a lot of the parents I speak to, they're really good with people, you included. And so they speak for their kids very frequently. And the kids get the chance to hide behind the parents. Not saying you did anything wrong, but I can only imagine. I get on calls intended to be 10 to 15 minutes with parents, and I end up listening for a long time, which is totally fine. They have a lot to share about their kids. But the only thing I can think is I have to imagine that this kid gets spoken for pretty frequently. And that's not a bad thing. I think the parents are just very social naturally. Again, I mentioned COVID and social media. So this is not a one side of the story, or this is rather one side of the story. And I think just enabling them to make decisions on their own and have conversations with people. I know even as I was coming up in college, my brother, who's 4 years older than my dad, this is my son or brother Andrew, he's blah, blah, blah. And at that point I had to be like, I can speak for myself now. Like you guys don't have to do this anymore, but it's just habit. I think I can only imagine as a parent making that jump from, adolescence into teenage years and adulthood. It's probably hard to be more hands off. I think that's probably step one. And then be yourself. Maybe we can put that aside for right now.
I love that. Yes, we probably need to put that aside. I also think I had a friend mentor in my life one time, and this was when our kids were little and we were struggling. I mean, maybe they were in like elementary to middle school. And I don't say this from an ego standpoint, but I remember the first thing when we sat down with this person, they were like, man, it's kind of tough to be your kid. And I was like, what do you mean? Like, I was like, well, I don't even understand what you're saying. And it was simply because what you're saying, like my husband and I are both very successful. We're outgoing. We're good with people. And I never had thought about how hard that could be for a kid that's shy.
Yeah.
And he also has a sibling that is the most outgoing person on the planet Earth. So to reiterate what you're saying, it's really easy to just default to quiet because somebody else is taking over center stage all the time.
100%. I think it's natural. And it's funny you mentioned, is your daughter's name Coco?
Yeah.
I remember you said that Coco was more socially out there for herself. And I see that all the time. Sisters, even younger sisters, are always more social than the guys. Even younger brothers too. I think there's got to be a firstborn thing going on. I don't know, but I hear it's funny.
That is funny. Well, and girls, girls just tend to be, for the most part, I think, a little bit more social, outgoing, all of that. Definitely. What is a habit that helps these young kids to feel confident or resiliency? Like, are there habits that you teach to kind of, I love the power of habits, the science of habits. Is there anything like that you teach them?
Particular habit, I think one thing that works well for them, if they tend to overthink, I just say commit to the first interaction. Like figure out what exactly you're going to say. If you're approaching somebody, commit to that first one. And then, like we always talk about, I give them tons of tools for asking questions and conversation frameworks. But that first bullet, I think, gets them in the door. And so it's on top of making sure you're showing up the right way and sending off all the right signals and being open. But just commit to the first one. So that's, hey, how's it going? Go in there friendly. And if you dictate that emotion, it's going to naturally flow. But if you go in there monotone, shoulders down, like you talked about walking into the house, everybody else is going to feel that and they're going to sink to that level. And so if you can commit, bring your best to that first part, it'll help the other person as well actually naturally get into conversation with you and you'll feel a lot better about it. So that's small. Thing.
It's such a small thing, but you're right. It's everything because it's like everything flows from that very first thing. And once you do it and you feel it, it's like you're kind of already in that energy,
Exactly.
Oh, So good. So good. So give me, if you would, and maybe this is me peeking behind the curtain of your sessions with my son that I know
Yeah.
nothing about. I just trust the process.
Yeah.
If we're talking about, because so many of my audience, they have young athletes, being recruited, talking to college coaches, that, I mean, I don't know what's more intimidating for a 16, 17, 18-year-old kid. I mean, it's like my entire future hinges on this conversation and what this coach thinks of me. And if he's going to pick me, it's like the pressure is unreal.
Yeah.
So talk me through kind of a little bit more in depth about, where it starts, that first, like you said, that first bullet, and then building on from there. What does that look like in those conversations, how you coach them through that?
Just so I understand your question, Moira. So it's you're talking about the process of coaching versus the conversation with a recruiting person.
No, the conversation with a recruiting. So if Finn messaged you today and he said, "Oh my gosh, Andrew, LSU is going to call me at 2:00.
Yeah.
And obviously you've done the foundational work with him, but what would be your 30,000 foot view? Like, don't forget these things.
Yeah, for Finn specifically, and this probably resonates with a lot of young guys as well. I mean, the first thing is I don't think there's a lack of gratitude. I think there's a lack of showing gratitude for young
right.
guys. So immediately you have to say thanks for your time. Thanks for your time. Bring an upbeat intro. How are you doing? Good just does not cut it anymore. I'm doing great, coach. Yeah. Here's what I got going on. How about you? How's everything on your end? So you have to reciprocate that. So that's the energy, asking them questions back. So show a little bit that you actually care about what they have going on, as well as the gratitude. And then for Finn, we talked about, and a lot of young guys need work on this, structure the answer so you don't get lost. So a lot of guys either go super concise, and here's a question, for example, what's drawing you to LSU outside of the baseball program? Immediately, you think of all these things, or you can't think of anything. So just structure the answers. You know what, coach? There are a few things that excite me about LSU. And this is one of the texts I sent you, Moira. The first thing is XYZ. Here's the second thing. And then lastly, I'm just excited to have a fun social life. It's such a great place. And so that way, if you tend to ramble, you have your structure in place and you don't lose sight of anything, especially in such a nerve-wracking situation. It just makes it, and it's just like public speaking. Like, tell them what you're going to tell them, and then tell them what you told them, pretty much.
That is so good, though. I'm like, I need to write this down because this is honestly, it's such a basic skill set, but man, I mean, especially if you could have that on some type of 4x6, bullet it out to just pull out every time you get on a call or something. It's and then the beautiful thing about what you're teaching them is just if they get enough reps under their belt, it just becomes how they communicate. It becomes the nature of the conversation. And I'm sure that's your hope for them.
Exactly. That's the biggest part of coaching, I would say, is you get the tools, of course, you get a ton of reps, and then you get real-time feedback. So the reps are the most important thing. And so I don't know if you knew this more, but I worked at Fidelity Investments for a while prior to what I do now. So I was a software engineer. When I was in my early 20s, I set a goal for myself to have as many conversations with people as possible with positive outcomes. And it wasn't about them liking me. I wanted them to feel better coming out of the conversation with me than they did coming in. And just that 1 year skyrocketed everything for me because I just focused on that one thing. And it was small and it was really hard, but the reps are everything. Because if you talk to 1 to 2 people a day, it's really hard to not be rusty and actually get good at it. So that's what I recommend. That's where coaching can be beneficial, especially in groups now because the guys get to talk to each other as well.
That's huge. So just to reiterate that too, because you're talking about getting the reps with you or in your coaching program. They don't have to go outside and go how am I going to get these reps? How am I going to get these conversations? They're actually getting them in the coaching with you, which is awesome.
With me and accountability throughout the week. Because if they didn't go get it in the real, it's so different. On a call with Andrew, you get comfortable with me, and then you got to try it out at some point.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I've always taught that even in business. It's we don't get good at anything by, learning about it. We only get good at it by doing it and probably doing it really bad for a little while before we get good.
It's true. I think that's probably the biggest challenge with social skills is people don't feel like there's room to mess up. And so that's the trickiest part, I would say.
Yes.
While they're in the fear, Even with social media, if you make content, I think that's why people are afraid to get out there at first, because they know it's not going to be great. And if
Yeah.
it's not, you're in front of a lot of people.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, yeah. You would think they would almost be a little bit more comfortable because of social, but the interesting thing about this next generation is they're not, I mean, some of them are, there's a whole wave of content creators, but there's also a huge wave of people pivoting off of social media. Now they might be using Snapchat and things like that to communicate, but they're not actually posting like talking head content. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's tricky.
So,
I mean, the talking heads, you get beat up a lot. I don't know if you're there at that point, but I get beat up every day. Not social.
yeah.
But
Well, if you're not getting beat up on social media, you're not doing it the right way.
that's true.
It's
Yeah,
like,
you got to be a tiny bit polarizing.
yes, absolutely. Well, last question. If you had a room full of moms of, let's say, seniors going to college, what would be the biggest piece of advice that you could give them?
I'm going to take a second for this one. Seniors
Yeah.
going off to college.
High school seniors, yeah.
There's so much there.
Mm.
Not be yourself. I'll tell you that up front. Let me think. Here's the thing. Get involved. It's a two-parter. Sorry, I got to go A and B here.
I was actually going to say it's probably a 1, 2, 3. So go for it.
Yeah. The first one, you got to get involved. You got to do stuff outside of class. Everybody has their headphones in. They leave class right away. That's how you're going to make friends. The second thing, showcase that you're open to making friends. So that means after class, if you already know someone, go over and say hi. Ask them how their week's going. And it's just, you got to nudge yourself out there. And then once you start collecting friends, you have allies.
Yeah.
But that's the biggest part. If you stay in your room too long, little cliques start to form early on in college, and then you feel like you're stuck. It only gets harder. So
yeah. Wow, that is so true. I can see that happening with so many college kids, actually.
Yeah, it breaks my heart when I hear it. I mean, it's really hard. And I had a million insecurities in college, but I can think back to times when I just went to random events and made friends, and it works. You just got to give it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, because everybody else is in the exact same situation as you are. And, minus kind of the athletes, they have like a built-in social club with their team. And so they're not having to, get outside their comfort zone quite as much as somebody that's not on a sports team. Yeah. But everybody, a freshman in college, they're all looking for the same thing. They're all insecure. They're all looking for their crew. Yeah. And I think, like you said, it's like if you first of all know that, but then also make it about them and not you, that's the game changer.
Exactly. That's it. That's the ticket.
That's awesome. I love that. Okay, Andrew, where can people find out everything about you, your coaching programs, all the things? We'll link it in show notes. So we'll make sure every link is there and they can access everything. But will you, before we kind of say where, you can tell us where in the same breath, but what does that look like? What are the different types of coaching programs you offer and where can we find them?
Sure. So right now I offer 2 programs. One is a one-on-one. They're both 8 weeks, by the way. One-on-one with me, weekly Zoom calls. You also have my full accountability. For both programs, you get access to my self-paced course too. Group program, very small groups, anywhere from 4 to 8 young guys, and generally co-located. It's over Zoom as well. And we do a ton of practice sessions. We do a ton of exercises. Same with one-on-one, but you get the chance to be in a room with guys that have similar challenges, and it's been going really well. So the guys are opening up well and seeming to enjoy it. So it's been a lot of fun. You can find that stuff.
Yep.
My Instagram's the best place to reach me. That's where I'm most active. So Andrew.Godwin_. And then my website, I believe, is linked in my bio as well. That's the best place to find me.
Amazing. Well, we'll link all that. We'll link your Instagram. We'll link your website. We'll link all of that in the show notes. And guys, I just want to encourage you to go, follow Andrew, look at all his resources, look at his programs, because this is so needed in the world. Like to me, this is the missing link. Like this is, we invest so much time and so much money on academics, on sports performance, on even mental sports performance. But this is such a pillar that is necessary but lacking, and you really fill the gap. So I'm just so grateful for your work in the world.
Thank you. I appreciate that. It means a lot.
Absolutely. Awesome. Well, that is a wrap, you guys. Go follow Andrew on Instagram. We'll link everything in the show notes, and we will see you on this show next week. Thanks for tuning in.